Hi, everybody. It's Dear Mama Sal, and we are live on a Friday afternoon, which means that it is our skills broadcast. And today, what we're going to be talking about is reactions and overreactions. Now, I want to thank the viewers who asked me to do something on this. And as usual, if there's ever a topic you would like me to talk about, please make sure that you email me at dearmamasal@gmail.com, and I will do my best to work around a topic that you might want to talk about. Hi there, Jody. So the whole point that we do these broadcasts on a Friday is just so that we can improve our knowledge. When we have more knowledge, we have more understanding. When we have more understanding, we get to change a little bit and make our lives happier. And that is what this is all about, just taking one step at a time every week, just learning a little bit more about why we do the things we do, and to forgive ourselves on them and keep learning about them. So today, when we talk about reactions, there are two sorts of reactions that we have. One is a normal one, and the other is the overreaction. And so what I wanted to do is just to make sure that you understand, that we all react, right? This is not that, there's something weird about you that you react. We all react. And it's quite normal. It's you don't even think about it. It's just like, I don't know how many of you found that out, where you just subconsciously react to some things and you don't even want to. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why that happens as we get into this a little bit more. All right. So I found a really, and just bear with me, I'm just moving the screens around here so I can see the both sides of the story here. All right. So and one of the things that I was given was by those of you who are regular followers of the broadcast, you know that Jody is is our admin. She looks, she sort of, she's there all the time for us when we do the broadcast. She takes notes. She reminds me of things I forget very easily. And then there's Lauren as well in Tasmania, who also has been doing a great job of supporting me during this very busy time. As some of you know, I'm in the process of moving. So trying to get a broadcast put together while I'm doing all that stuff is pretty difficult. And quite honestly, for the last couple of weeks, both Lauren and Jody have been so quick to step up and say, what can we do to help? And I'd like to thank them both for their encouragement and their support during this time. And the most wonderful thing is that all I needed to do was to come up with a subject, tell them roughly what I wanted, and boy, did they come up with some wonderful stuff. So thank you both, and let's talk about it, because that's what we're here for. So if you're new to watching, please feel free to carry on watching. Some people have watched for months and years even before they ever participated. Excuse me. If you care to participate, just understand that I may double check with you whether it's okay for me to repeat what you've said, because if you are new, you might forget the fact that this goes out on a replay after we have finished talking about it. And therefore, I just, the regulars know not to talk about things unless it's okay for me to talk about them. So Jody's saying, thank you for teaching us all in a way that only you can. Well, the way I teach people, Jody, is through my own life. That's what I've always said, is if I can come on to YouTube and talk to people about my life, I think they'd learn a lot. And not that my life is so special, but I don't think enough people talk about the realities of life. Life isn't easy at times. It can be pretty difficult. And I can assure you that I was busy going, well, I got 3 weeks until the furniture arrives. It's a week tomorrow. So you think about the stress level of that. And anyway, we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So first of all, let's talk about what overreaction is, because I want you to understand that we're going to talk about a few examples here before we talk into the deeper parts of it. But what I want you to understand is quite all right to react to something. If you have an emotional response to something, an emotional response being that you heard something and you were angry, or you heard something and you were sad, or you heard something and you were confused, that's normal. And we'll talk a bit more about that. What an overreaction is a more emotional or forcible response than justified. Now, I like to think of it in this way. If it has any element of punishment in it, that's overreacting. And you'll understand why I'm saying that in a second when I give you some of the examples. I thought this was a really nice quote that Jody found, and it said, "I used to think I was overreacting. Now I realize it's just a normal reaction to an abnormal amount of drama." I think that's a really good thing to remember. Hi, Nyasha. Good to see you. So how many of you know that I've got more than my average amount of drama going on? So do you think that the chances of my overreacting to things are probably a little bit higher than normal? Doesn't justify them, but is it likely? I think so. Right? My tolerance level is probably way down on its usual thing. And I assure you, by this time next week, you probably don't want to be on the broadcast this time next week. Or will I even be doing one? That's a very good question. And before we get into the main topic, I just wanted to say a couple of things. Number one, I know that Nana wrote to me about her knee, and it turns out that she actually has got arthritis in that knee, as well as the Baker cyst thing. The one exacerbated the other. I'm still waiting to hear from Beth in terms of the biopsy. And for those of you who might have missed it, our Lolo was in hospital this week. I think she might still be there, I'm not sure, because she had AFib. That's when the heart goes out of rhythm. And so, but I spoke to her via Messenger, and she said they may be doing more tests on her. They're not, the last I heard, they're not releasing her just yet. It's just so that you all know. By the way, if you are here and you haven't clicked on the bell or hit the subscribe button, please do that, because then you'll be advised of all the broadcasts that we've got. And if you've got a birthday in February, please let us know, because I am trying to redo the database in terms of people's birthdays. All right, so now then, the definition of to overreact, to react to something too strongly, to respond to something with too strong an emotion, with unnecessary or excessive action. And so if you've got that right, that the reaction is when you just have an emotional response. Overreaction is when you do that, with bells on. And what's it Nyasha saying here? Isn't that a scary situation? I'm so sorry. No, she's not here at the moment. Yes, it certainly was. But you know what I said to her, Nyasha? And I do believe this. I said, the chances are that Lolo needed to rest. And she probably wasn't listening to her body. And sometimes the body does things to make sure that you not only rest, but you get looked after. And it happened to me once, and that's why I'm aware of it, where I wasn't looking after myself and I kept pushing on, and I wasn't looking after myself. And then one day my body just said, okay, I'm putting you in hospital. And that way I'll make sure you eat 3 meals a day, and I'll make sure you get the rest you need. And I've also been so aware of it ever since then. So let's talk a little bit, if we can, about reactions. Have you ever been in a car or driving a car when somebody cut you off? And what is the normal reaction when somebody does that? And the reason I say that is because different people have different reactions. I used to react quite strongly to that in the old days. But I know now that I've taught myself to say, you are obviously in a greater hurry than I am. And obviously I have better time management than you do, is something that I add in there sometimes, which is a bit sarcastic, but it is who I am. So when you think about that, now I was driving with a friend of mine once, and a guy came from a feeder road. I mean, that's what feeder roads do, right? A feeder road. And he fed in front of her. I was passenger in the car, and she was incensed. She was so angry. Yeah, Joanne. Hi, Joanne. Good to see you. Joanne's saying better to get there late than not at all. Yeah, I quite agree. I'm getting into that part. Anyway, she, started to get really angry. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, well, he cut in front of us. And I said, no, he was on a feeder road. And, you take it in turns. Not in front of me, he doesn't. And then you could hear, I'll teach him. Do you know that one where there's a sort of punishment aspect to it? Do any of you relate to what I'm saying? I'll teach you to do that to me. And she literally hunted this guy down with the car and then cut him off. Now, to me, this was dangerous stuff to do. I was really quite surprised. And I always said to people, if you want to know about anybody, drive with them. How many of you have noticed that? You will find out a lot about people's tolerance level, about how polite they are, what risks they take, sort of thing, just by driving with them. And, to me, I was quite shocked that this friend of mine actually, reacted, and it taught me something about her that I didn't know before. Now, do you all agree that road rage, when somebody gets out of the car and starts screaming at you because you did something wrong, is an overreaction? By the way, pulling a gun and shooting somebody because they did that is definitely an overreaction. And so if you can see that, then this will help as we go through the various examples. The other one I wanted to talk to you about, because I've been there and done that, is if you've ever been divorced or gone through that terrible process, would you agree that your first reaction is shock or anger or disbelief or whatever? It follows the cycle of loss that we talk about so often. But have any of you ever gone past that and gone into, I'll teach you to do this to me mode, right? What was the movie? Waiting to Exhale, I think, rings a bell. Where she threw out all his clothes and then, set fire to them. All right, so yeah, Joanne's saying yes, but I can understand why some people do it. I totally understand it. It's happened to me. Yes, Jodie remembers Angela Bassett. That's right. And it's funny how those little moments in a movie, stick in your mind, right? And it's just like you go, wow. I think everybody in the movie theater that I was in applauded. But can you see that was a revenge part? All right. It wasn't just that she got angry, she got revengeful. Where was the other one like that? First Wives Club, right? I think that also had a revenge factor in it. So to me, that is where we can tell it's an overreaction. And if we have emotional intelligence, we actually do not need to punish people. That's what I'm trying to get to here. That when you'll know that you have grown, when you don't get into that punishment phase, and you're going to hear what happened to me, and I didn't do too well this week. So I thought it was nice that Lauren gave me an example. And I thought a lot of us could relate to this. How many of you can relate to the fact that somebody arrives at your house uninvited and expects you to let them in and entertain them? And I wonder how many of you react to that and how. And Lauren, if you happen to listen to this, thank you so much for this example, because, you know, I can really relate to that. I don't do surprise visitors well. And I thought we would talk about it because I think it's something a lot of people can relate to. So the question is, why, right? So it's like there are two different schools of thoughts on this one, because, you know, they, and I'm going to put us here, they think, oh, isn't that nice? I'll go visit Sal, you know, and she'll be so happy to see me. So they think this is an act of love, right? So, but our reaction is a negative one. Some people, now some people here that are my viewers will absolutely, you know, say, I totally get it, and that's how I react. But I've also got a lot of viewers that react negatively. So the question I would have is, do you know why you react negatively to that? And, you know, if you do enough processing, which is that you think about it and get deeper in to find out why, it has all sorts of different sort of stringy attachments to it, right? So one would be, all right, I was brought up that you don't do that. All right, so one would be, try that again. It's about manners. In my case, all right, so I get triggered because, to me, if you don't bother to phone me and ask me, that you know, that lacks some manners. There's an entitlement there. Now, what do I mean by entitlement? You should be happy to see me. You know, they feel they are entitled to have you react that way. There also is a factor of that they think that you didn't have any other plans. How many of you get triggered by that one? Well, hang on, I had things planned for today, and suddenly these people pitch up, and now I can't do what I planned to do. I must admit that I have been known, and I did it to Benji once. You turn up on my doorstep when I've got other arrangements. I told him to go away. You know, and I said, I'm really sorry, but I have another arrangement, and I can't see you today. All right, so Jody's saying, not prepared. I want to have some treats baked. Yes, preparation. You like time to prepare for guests, and it has a good intent. Jody likes to make sure she's baked some special cookies, and the house should look perfect. Yes. And you also, because Jody has lymphoderma, she never knows how she's going to feel that day, or the fibromyalgia side of it as well. So can you understand, when you get deep into it, there are good reasons why you react, right? Now, let me ask you something. If you hadn't been taught, if I had never been taught that it was rude to just pitch up on somebody's doorstep, I probably would feel differently. Does that make sense? Right? If I didn't have entitlement issues, I guess that one wouldn't trigger me either. And if I didn't have any plans for the day, week, or month, I might not even worry about that one. And can you understand that if the house looked perfect and I already had the cookies just hot out of the oven and I was sitting there hoping somebody would visit, suddenly this negative would turn into a positive. Does that make any sense? You see, we're going to be talking a little bit later about neurofeedback, because part of what happens is it's in here. Part of our reaction is from memories and training and the way we've been taught things that makes us react. And I want to make sure you could. Did you see how I knocked those off? Depending, if you didn't have those things, I would react this way. And so that's why I wanted to show you that. Now, one of the things I love about Lauren is she's so honest about stuff. And she was telling me one day that, this happens quite regularly in her household. People just pitch up. And she hates it. But you understand, if she just gets upset with it, that's one thing. Now, she hasn't told me that she's done this, but what if you all know she's in a wheelchair. So what if she says hello, gives them some, how about, do any of you know any passive aggressive behaviors that you do to people who visit you when you don't want them to? What sort of things do people do? Have you ever been anywhere where they didn't say anything, but their body language told you that they weren't very happy that you were there? So if you can think of any of those, but I was thinking, if Lauren turned her wheelchair around and wheeled her chair back into her bedroom and closed the door, do you understand? That would be a pretty good indication. Joanne saying, what if you hide under the table and don't answer the door? Yeah. Hi, Judith. How are things in Ireland? So you understand. Now, the overreaction that I wanted to talk about would be if Lauren turned her wheelchair around, wheeled herself back into the bedroom and slammed the door. Do you all understand that? That is an overreaction. Jody says, how about that they're constantly looking at the clock and go, yeah, the eyes, watch the eyes. Or how about they keep checking their watch? Like, are you going soon? Yeah, not nice. All right, so you all can feel that, right? And it's important that you can feel it, so that we can continue the discussion. So are there any things that trigger you like that, where you react or overreact? Before I get into my story and then Jody's story. Have you had anything happen recently? By the way, how are you all doing with the last week's task, which was to look after yourself first? How did you all do on that one? I tried to make sure that I talked about it on every vlog because, boy, it was difficult. And I didn't realize how difficult that is for me. But I did it. And I'm going to keep doing it too, because I can see the importance of it. All right, so while you guys are thinking about that, I want to go into what happened to me. Now, you all know that within a week, tomorrow, the furniture is all going to move here. How stressful is that, you know, and I'm not ready at the house. I'm definitely not ready for them to move yet, but yeah, it is what it is. But then a few days after that, the documentation will all be done. Now, I knew that I would get the call, and, you know, from the conveyancer, that's the person that does all the documents about buying and selling a house. Now, I particularly wanted all my documents done by a particular notary public that I dealt with some time ago. And so I was really happy to, because she was just so nice and so personable, and she did not make it stressful. She made it very easy to deal with something as difficult as this. So do you all understand that this will be the biggest financial deal that I will probably do in my life? How scary is that? You know, how important is it that it gets done right? And how important is it that it not get screwed up? You know, it's really, it's huge to me. So I wanted to make sure I had somebody working on it that I trusted. So that was fine. And I expected the call that they would phone me to make the appointment for me to come in and do all those documents with them. And I did, I got the call. So hang on a second before I carry on with the story. Nyasha's saying, I was taught not to react in front of strangers. Though sometimes what they do upsets me. I don't let them see it. My major pet peeve is when someone talks down to me. Yeah. So the question is, have you seen the movie yet? A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood, Nyasha. Because Mr. Rogers, when somebody said something like that, he would just look at them and smile and say, that's an interesting perspective, right? In other words, the fact that they talk down to you is their problem, not yours, Nyasha, right? You cannot force somebody to talk to you with respect, from my experience. And Jody's saying that she's practicing morning meditation to put herself first. I haven't had it become a habit yet, but I have remembered most days. And those quiet minutes in the early morning have been so positive for me. Yes, let me explain my morning. I had stayed up to watch the first part of the Australian tennis semi-final. And that only started at 12:30 in the morning. And so I fell asleep watching the first set, which was fine. I then woke up to see the last set, which was awesome. I've got my brain trained for this now. But then I went to sleep because I knew, okay, now it's time. I need to get some good sleep in there before I do 2 broadcasts today. Well, the phone went at 6:10 in the morning. How many of you know that's scary, to get a telephone call just after 6 o'clock in the morning? And in my befuddled state, I heard somebody say, your credit card has been used for 2 transactions that we don't believe are yours. And if you didn't make if you didn't buy a gift card recently for $1,000, please press 1. And you know, it was 6:10 in the morning. My mind was not functioning, and I pressed 1. But luckily, my phone died. That's the interesting thing. My phone actually died, and I had to go and get my other phone, the one with the battery that hadn't died. And then I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to phone Visa and find out whether they called me. Long story short, it turned out to be a scammer. And of course, Visa wanted to know, did I give them any information? And I said, no, my phone died. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You see, I don't believe in coincidences. So that was, do you understand that how is it normal to feel a little abused with that? All right. And is it normal to feel angry about that? Yeah, that you're trying to do that to me. So that was the first thing. So what I wanted to talk about in terms of the house deal was I got the telephone call to make the appointment and I was excited and I went, oh, good, okay, fine. And they were making it earlier than I thought, which was also good. So I don't have all that stress on the day that it all fits together. And then the lady making the appointment with me said, you'll be seeing so-and-so. And I said, who? You see, it wasn't the name of the person who owned the company. And that is the person I dealt with last time. So she said, no, you'll be seeing so-and-so. And I don't know what happened to me, but I was upset. The whole reason I called this person's company was so that I could deal with her. Does this make any sense to anybody? And I going, what? I said, but the reason, you know what I mean? I told the truth. And I said, the reason I called the company was so that I could deal with her. Well, she doesn't do that sort of stuff anymore. Oh, I said, so I'm not important enough anymore. That's how I felt. And she said, no, it's not about that. And I said, well, actually, yes, it is. When you think about it, yes, it is, right? And so and then I sort of quickly adjusted and everything. And I said, well, okay. Well, the interesting thing was that I subsequently got a call from the lady that I thought I was going to be seeing. And she was telling me, basically what I'd already heard, that she didn't do those sort of things anymore, but she was so glad that I had contacted them again and all the, and all those sort of things. And then it got so much worse because she said, I said, well, I dealt with you, all these years ago, and I really remember you. I remember you were on a diet, and I remember how kindly you dealt with me. And she didn't know who I was. Now, I don't know about you guys, but do you think that I take not being remembered very well? It was just like, how could you not remember me? Everybody else does. So it was really an important moment, for me, where I just went. And then I started to laugh, and I told the truth again. And I said, well, I'm just dealing this moment with not being memorable. And that's not something I'm used to very often. So therefore, just give me a second while I regroup. Can you imagine me saying that? She said, well, I'm really so sorry, but when you come in, I'll make sure I pop in and say hello. And by then I wasn't sure I even wanted to see her. But what I wanted to talk to you about is when I got triggered, and I did. That triggered is where you come out of your happy place and you start not being a happy person anymore. I realized I got disappointed. I felt entitled to see her. And I took it personally. Now, being disappointed is a normal reaction, I think. Feeling entitled is a little bit more than that. And the fact I took it personally was a little bit of an overreaction. But now, what happened to me when I look back on it, what happened to me was I got snippy. Do you know what I mean? I got a little bit sarcastic. And I even contemplated not giving them the business. Now, I'm mentioning those two things because I believe that getting sarcastic was a punishment and therefore an overreaction. And I think considering not even giving them the business because I couldn't deal with the person I wanted to deal with was also an overreaction. Does that make sense? Aloha. Good to see you, Lana. So that's what I want you to see. Now, I can remember meeting somebody once, a client of mine, and he was telling me a story about going to the bank. Now, this guy had a lot of money. I don't mind mentioning that. He had a lot of money. And he had an appointment with his bank person at, let's say, 2:30 in the afternoon. Actually, let's make it 1:30 because I know that the bank person had been out to lunch. And he waited 5 minutes. And she arrived, I think, within 5 minutes of the time. And when she arrived, he said, I did come here to do a major deal, but owing to the fact you couldn't be bothered to be here on time, I am taking my money, the whole account, out of your bank and moving it to another bank. Now, was that a reaction or an overreaction? What do you think? So I want you to see this because here is the guy with the money and here is the bank person. Okay. And he's got a lot of money. And the bank appointment was at 1:30, and at 1:35, she walked in and he pulled every cent of his investment with the bank out. Do you think that is a reaction or an overreaction? The reason she was being late was she said, I'm so sorry, I got caught up at a lunch. So Jody is saying it was a punishment. Well, in my view, Jody, if it has a punishment element to it, it's an overreaction. Does that make, because to me, I'm looking for simple ways for people to understand things. All right. So if you can hang on to that, if I've got a punishment element to it, then I have overreacted. Then I think that's a simple way to think about it. Right. Listen to Judith's reaction. Was he never late for anything in his work life? That's irrelevant. All right. That's irrelevant. You see, to him, he was entitled to a 1:30 appointment. End of story. Entitled being the word, right? Remember, I mentioned that I felt entitled to see the person I wanted to see, and I nearly moved the business because they weren't going to let me see her, right? So I can relate to this. The difference is he did it. And I must admit, when I heard the story, I did the same sort of thing as Judith is talking about, which is, what, she was 5 minutes late and you took all your money out of the bank? He said she was 5 minutes late. So does it happen? It happens. But can you see the punishment element? And if you can, then I have done this the way I wanted to. Remember, my friend, when the guy legally dovetailed in front of her. She's going to teach him, and she hunted him down to cut him off. Punishment. Overreaction. Right. In the meantime, Jody is busy teaching Nyasha something about meditation. So for those of you who are aware, meditation is just literally taking a few minutes in the busyness of our days to stop and contemplate, maybe write something, write in a journal. To meditate is to, some people pray. Some people do guided meditation where, you know, they listen to affirmations. I am a good person. I make good decisions. Da, 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 da. Really, what meditation is about, Nyasha, is just taking a few minutes to put positive energy into your life. All right, so Nyasha's saying the Serenity Prayer has now become part of my life. The other one that I would really recommend is something called, hang on a second, don't know if I can do this at this angle. Yep. Nyasha, if you can, look up something called Desiderata. It was a poem that is written on somebody's tomb, but it's an incredible thing, and I recommend everybody have a copy of that in their life. The benefits of doing meditation are really just to calm the mind, to keep you relaxed and not overreacting, to keep you in a good place is a really good reason why people, to lower your stress level is a reason why people meditate. To drop their blood pressure is a reason why people can meditate and do meditate. All right, so now I'm going to just let you know that if you don't follow us on Facebook and Twitter, you might want to, because we put up a 30-minute warning of the broadcast. But the next thing I want to do is talk about Jody's example, because Jody had this incredible thing happen to her. And just as a backstory on Jody, you need to understand that she suffers from lymphedema. She has reason to walk either with a walker or with a wheelchair. And she also, because of all the medical issues that she has to go to the pain management doctor every month to get this month's pain medicine. It's not a elective thing, it is a necessity for her that she gets there and, you know, discusses her pain levels and everything else, and that they prescribe her the medication for that month. So over the last, I don't know how long, Jody, have you had the medical transport situation? How long have you had that set up? At least a year, I would think, that I can think of. But what happened was that her medical coverage covered her for a transport van to come and collect her in her wheelchair and take her to the doctors. That's what I thought, for a year. Yeah. Take her to the doctor and then collect her at the end of the appointment and take her home again, with Lionel, her husband. And so that was her routine, and that was fine. So she wakes up the other week with a telephone call to tell her that the transportation aspect of her medical plan has been dropped. No warning, like it is dropped immediately. And Jody reacted, and I'd like to tell you what she told me her reaction was. Okay. She said, "No, I wasn't rude. I was in shock and cried. The lady I talked to was very sympathetic, and she was in disbelief that it had been taken away. That's the transport. She searched for almost 45 minutes for another alternate plan for me to get into immediately, but there were none. It has gone across the board. Now you imagine that you rely on, you don't have a car, by the way, I forgot that little bit. They don't have a car. Theirs broke down also about a year ago. And so they don't have the use of a car. And now she has to have that medication, and she has to be there in person to get it. Now, the interesting thing that Jody followed up her note to me and said, but the old Jody that existed BS, that's before Sal, she says, would have had a nuclear meltdown. Having the tools, the awareness to process a little bit easier, I was able to jump from victim to action mode so much more quickly, and I didn't waste precious time. But what she said was her first reaction was denial. And we know that. That's the cycle of loss, right? The first thing you hit is denial. It must be a mistake. I had this benefit last year. There's been some sort of mix-up. I totally get that. I think that's totally a normal reaction. And it is a reaction. Her next thought was panic. What are we going to do now? Our finances do not allow for $200 per appointment budget. Right? She doesn't have the budget to be able to afford $200 extra a month. How terrifying is that? So I understood the panic. She then said she went into mourning or sadness, right? The sadness that there was no prior notice given. Mine would have been anger on that one, not sadness. And she had an appointment in just a few days that she had to get to. Also, being Jody, she was thinking about how many other vulnerable people were in the same situation, potentially missing out on the care that they needed to improve their quality of life. And then she said, and anger, the fact that this was allowed to happen without prior notice, right? Her issue wasn't that it happened, it was that she didn't get any warning that starting, February the 1st, this is going to happen. It was just a telephone call one day starting now. However, what Jody said was, after she processed it all, if you notice that you react first, and then given a bit of time, you start to sort of, if you are adult, you start to process it and work through it. And she said, as she processed it, she got to acceptance that it was what it was. There was no changing it. She has a limited amount of energy every day, and I didn't want to waste time staying in victim mode. Right? And I think that is so good that you've learned that one. And the next thing is, she knows that if you want to be a victor, not a victim, it requires that you do something. And she said her next reaction was one of action. What can I do? She said to have a positive mindset, to get active, to reach out to friends and let them know. And she says, Sal and Lauren helped me brainstorm different ideas for finding a resolution. So, Jody, what I want you to see is I did not, in any of what you told me, hear about a punishment. You didn't tell the lady that phoned you that she was a raving idiot and, you were going to report her, or, you know what I mean? All the things that people do in anger. And you just literally took it and dealt with it. Well done. It was a reaction, not an overreaction. And the fact that you cried is perfectly normal, right? That's a normal reaction when you hear devastating news. So I think you did really well on that. And I know that you're still struggling to find the answer for it, and I believe that you will. And hopefully some of the ideas that we have given you will pan out for you. And if not, we'll find some other ones. You know that. So can you see that, Jody, that because there was no punishment aspect, and you remember I said to you, did you shoot the messenger? In other words, did you get angry with the person who phoned you when it wasn't her decision to make it? Somebody else higher up the food chain made the decision. Her job was just to tell you. I can't help but think, Jody, how many devastating calls she had to make. And she probably was so grateful that you handled it with the honesty that you did. And you probably made her day better by that. All right? Because you imagine how many people screamed at her and were so angry with her and were so nasty to her, shoot the messenger stuff, when it had nothing to do with her. She was just giving the message. Now, if you don't know where shoot the messenger came from, it's like like you hear bad news, and the gangsters, if they hear bad news, they'd shoot the guy that told them. And so, and plus, in the olden days, back in way back, biblical type days, if a messenger came with bad news, they would get killed as well, not shot, but they, it's amazing how people react to bad news. They blame the wrong person. Now, I must admit, Jody, when I was talking to the lady about the appointment that I was going to have, I did keep saying to her, I'm not angry at you. I need you to know I'm not angry at you. I am angry, but I'm not angry at you. And because I wanted her to know that I understood the difference. Right, and Jody's saying that her person to whom she was speaking did mention that there had been many calls that day about the same subject. I am sure there had been. On a brighter note for a second, I just wanted to let you know that Isabel passed on a really great tip this week about health. And I'm pretty sure we're all trying to eat more healthily, and that includes reducing the amount of sugar. And one of the things that Isabel said was that if you have yogurt and you find that you need something sweet on it, she said sprinkle a few grains of a Jello powder on it. And I thought, huh? But you know me, got to try it. And I had some yogurt and I put some black cherries, frozen black cherries in it. And then I thought, I wonder what happens, because I had some grape Jello, and I just literally sprinkled a pinch. I was trying to think what the right term would be. In other words, I pinched some of those crystals from the Jello and I just sprinkled them on top. It works. Definitely will be doing that. So, and by the way, obviously pick one that has a no sugar type label on it, right? So thank you very much indeed, Isabel, because you just changed my life. Because I was thinking, how many other things could I do that with? All right, so let's see this one here. I just want to double check the reference on this one to make sure I got it right. Patrick Allen in lifehacker.com said, it is important to know the difference between reacting and overreacting, because not all intense responses are overreactions. Okay? It is perfectly fine to feel your emotions and to express yourself accordingly. Just like in physics, Every action can have an equal and opposite reaction. If something is truly upsetting, you can be upset. If something makes you justifiably angry, you can be angry. So again, do you understand that those are emotions that are perfectly normal? They are not overreacting, regardless of what somebody else says. You know, if somebody comes home and says, you know, I'm having an affair, da, 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 you know, and you react and they say you're overreacting, you go, no, I am reacting. Believe me, getting the gun and shooting you would be the overreaction. And land me in jail. So let's see another quote here. Overreacting means having an emotional reaction out of proportion to the situation. There are two kinds of overreacting. Now listen to this one, people. Internal and external. External overreactions are actions and behaviors that other people can see, such as shouting at somebody angrily. Make sense? So if Jody had shouted at the lady who told her, you know, that your transport's gone, lady, but she didn't. She kept it with herself and cried at the shock of it, right? So she didn't punish the lady who phoned her. That's an overreaction. Let me continue. External overreactions are actions and behaviors that other people can see, such as shouting at somebody angry, whereas the internal overreactions are emotional responses that other people may or may not notice, such as deciding to give up on the drama club because you didn't get the part you wanted. Right? That's the guy in the bank, right? He decided, boom, his overreaction in his mind was, you didn't treat me with respect, I'm taking my business away, even though she was just 5 minutes late. But he's right. Both forms of overreaction result in damage done to reputations, relationships, and self-esteem. You can avoid overreacting by learning more about what's causing your emotional response and finding new ways to deal with it. I think you can all see that, right? If you incline to overreact, let's talk about some ways of avoiding it. So the first thing is to be aware, and I'm hoping that, you know, doing this program today will help some of you realize what is happening. Be aware of your automatic patterns, and how you distort things, all right? You remember my entitlement. Well, you know, I phoned her company, I want to see her. That's my right. Yeah, quite honestly, that's not true. I didn't say, and I only want an appointment with so-and-so, you know, in which case I wouldn't have got it either. So the question is, do you know what cognitive distortions are? That's a pretty technical term. And what I thought I'd do is I'd quickly run through some of them, just so that you can get an idea. It's a big subject all on its own, this cognitive stuff. So what I thought I would do is just give you some of the ones. You know, when we filter the information that we get given, we only listen to the bits we want to hear, not all of it. That is a distortion. You know, you sort of cherry pick what you want to hear. Hang on one second. I've now lost the main screen, which I'd like to get back. There we go. Oh, I see why I've lost it. I cannot hold on. There we go. I just need to drop that out onto a different screen and then we'll be able to do it. So many screens, people. My poor computer. Right, the next one is black and white thinking. How many of you relate to that one? We don't have any gray areas. It's either you do it my way or the highway type stuff. And that also is a distortion in your thinking. Because, we should always go for the win-win. Overgeneralization. How about, they give an example here of a student that gets a bad mark on a particular paper one semester, and they think that they're useless because of that. Not true. They just didn't do well on that particular paper, right? But that's an overgeneralization. If I take this little bit of information and I put it as a total all or nothing thing. How many of you jump to conclusions? I am pretty sure that I do. And the other thing is this, that we presume, do any of you know this one? We presume what the other person is thinking or doing. Well, let me give an example. I could do with some help on the moving. My answer is everybody that is close to me knows what I'm doing. If they wanted to help me, they would be here. All right, or would help in some way. So to me, it's like Yvonne said to me, I think you need to tell them you need help. And I said, well, to me, they know I need help. But that's just the way I see it. How about catastrophizing? I call this, what do I call this? I'll think of it in a minute. But this is when you magnify everything terribly. You make it really bad. The day that I moved in here and I saw Mickey Mouse running across the floor, I presumed that the house was infestated with mice. The fact that it was -20 and little Mickey was frozen and needed food, I understood within a short space of time, but it took me a while to cognitively think about that. How about a personalization? Let's say you were late for a dinner party or something, and that caused everyone to have a terrible time. And you say to yourself, well, if I'd pushed my husband to leave on time, it would never have happened. Well, of course that doesn't happen, right? It wasn't your fault. But I found the opposite. I can remember going to a Christmas party one time. And how about this one? And one of the daughters was late. And I don't mean half an hour late. I mean 3 hours late plus. And the hostess made everybody wait until that daughter arrived. And being who I am, I said, I cannot believe that you did that. I cannot believe that you made all your guests wait 3 hours because one of your guests couldn't be here on time. I find that interesting. And by the way, as soon as the meal had finished, I went to leave and she said, you can't leave yet. We've only just finished dinner. I said, it was your choice to start it 3 hours late. It is now time for me to go home. How about control stuff, right? That is also a big one. Have you ever seen this one, which is, why aren't you happy? What is it? Something I did? We think that we control the world. It's not true. And how about I need for everything to be fair? Well, life isn't fair. All right. If we keep waiting for life to be fair, we're going to be bitterly disappointed. How about blaming people? That's also, that stop making me feel bad. Right? I don't make people feel bad. They make themselves feel bad. Well, we all know about the should statements. You're shoulding all over yourself. Must, ought, have tos, all those, I hate those. I just don't allow people to use those on me because I learned that they are, control things. I just, when people say to me, well, you really must do X, Y, and Z. And I go, nope, the last time I checked, I was an adult and I don't have to do anything I don't want to. I may choose to, but I don't have to. There's no must about it. The other thing is that how many of you have had that one happen where just because you feel it doesn't make it true? Yeah, Nyasha, it would really help you to do some research into this, cognitive distortions. It would really, really help you to do some work on this. So you get the idea. So any of you that want to do more follow-up on it, just literally type into Mr. Google cognitive distortions and you are going to learn a lot. All right, now let me carry on with what we were doing, just so now that you've got the idea of what sort of things are in there. All right, so then basically it's a distortion of the truth. We justify what we think is true by our negative thinking is really what it's about, when it isn't necessarily true. Nyasha, you will remember that when you and I first spoke, you made all sorts of assumptions about your boss that weren't necessarily true. All right. And then I gave you my thinking as somebody who's been a boss, and you could see through the discussions we had that maybe it wasn't quite as you thought it was. That's called, that's the work, cognitive work. Okay. Let's carry on with this. The next thing, once you understand all of these things, you get to check out with yourself, how many of these things am I using? I remember Charlotte talking to us about these cognitive distortions as well. And so I have to thank her because she was one of the reasons why I decided to do this in a bit more depth this time. So once you can identify what you did, for example, when I was talking to the lady from the conveyance office, what I realized was I managed to process pretty quickly, and I'm going, I am angry. Why am I angry? Well, I thought I should see the lady, and I'm not going to. Well, get over it. Literally, I'm going, get over it, right? And do you want to make the appointment or go somewhere else? Jody, in terms of what you were saying, as you have learned so well, get out of the pity party and get into action. I just literally said, make a decision. Do you want to move to another person or do you want to just deal with them anyway? Because you don't have time to mess around, right? Which I don't. And I just then, it was just like, wake up, make a decision. So I did, and I decided I would go and meet the other person, the new person. The other thing is, I would encourage you all to check to see whether the same things trigger you. All right. For example, people criticize you. Does it trigger you? And does it happen all the time? People trying to control me, triggers me. And it happens all, except I now know how to stop it. I have got a really nasty owie here. Anyway, so that sort of thing. And if you can identify your behaviors, you can do something about them. Remember, understanding that you've got them is the first trick. The other thing is to ask, as I did, I asked myself, do I really want to overreact to this anymore? Because, I need the appointment and I need to get those documents signed and I need it off my list. So that's a really important way of getting through this. I wonder if any of you have ever heard of neurofeedback. Because, Jody, when she was giving me notes on this stuff, she happened to mention neurofeedback, and I wondered whether any of you have ever heard of that. And basically, what we know, and you can sort of look into that, that basically what happens to us is when we hear certain words, when we see certain things, it affects a certain part of our brain. And that will be different for different people. And why is that? Well, it depends on our background, depends on our learning. For example, if somebody points a finger at you, you may not react at all. I react to that. Why? Because it's in a part of my brain that's called my mother. And good manners, they're sort of linked somewhere. And I can remember being told you never point at anybody and if I ever pointed at anybody, I'd get punished. So, it's in that part of my brain. So if I see somebody point at me, guess what happens in my brain? You see, I relive the learning from my mother. Yeah. So it's dependent, yes, on what your triggers. Your triggers are dependent on your perception of that thing, Jody, and depending on where the perception is where it's stored in the brain. So if you like, you've got these little filing cabinets. My pointing finger bit is stored in the punishment area. Does that make sense? Because if I ever did it, I got punished. So my reaction to not getting the appointment with the lady I wanted had to do with my entitlement part, right? Like the guy at the bank. Now, why did I feel entitled? Because I was kind enough to give her the business. Listen to me, right? So you see, understand, it's all makes sense. But the question is, do you keep getting triggered on that thing? And if you do, you may want to get help. And getting help doesn't mean you're messed up. Getting help means that you have already identified that this subject always triggers you. Now, what I found is owning it helps. All right, actually being able to say, to do a broadcast about how I react to stuff tells me I'm getting healthy. Because for the longest time, I would never, ever admit that maybe there was something in my thinking that wasn't right. Do you understand what I'm saying? It was always their fault. They made me react like this. And now I'm going, no, I reacted like this. It's on me. I choose to react. Now, sometimes I don't choose because it's subconscious. And I want to make sure you all understand that. Have any of you ever had, some of you will relate to this maybe. Have any of you ever heard somebody's voice tone and it had a negative reaction to you? You felt a negative reaction inside when you heard a certain voice tone, or maybe you saw somebody give you a certain look and it has a reaction. And the reason is because of where it's stored in your brain. You see, somebody at some time spoke to you like that, and what happened afterwards was extremely damaging to you. Or somebody looked at you like that just before they hit you. Do you understand? So there are all these little links, and everybody's brain is wired differently in terms of, so Jody can see somebody look at her like that and not react. But because of my history, if I see that look, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up and I have a different reaction. Yes, so Jody's saying she can relate to that, a certain look, yes. And so the neurofeedback is really important if you've got a lot of issues like this, because what it does is they actually hook you up and they work out that neurologically, they work out what part of the brain is reacting to this. You see, you do it subconsciously, not consciously, right? When somebody points at me, I don't think, that's a really rude thing to do. And my mommy would punish me for that. And, I just, no, what happens is I just see the finger and everything in my body starts to react. It's instantaneous. I hope this is making sense to you. It's not conscious, it is a subconscious reaction. I later can process it and work out, oh, I know why, because I was taught that was really bad manners, and if I did it, I got punished. Duh, no wonder I reacted. Right, so I got a couple of quotes about neurofeedback that I thought you would like. Listen to this very carefully, because in here is the essence of it, right? We're saying this to the brain, chill, not to the person. If the person could chill or not be afraid, they wouldn't need neurofeedback. You see, the person can't chill, and that's the issue. You need the brain to chill away from that. All right, so look at this. Jody's saying, I get triggered by people that look at me because I'm in a wheelchair. They automatically look at Lionel and ask him a question about me. Excuse me, I'm right here too. Yes, Jody, I totally get that. But I would love you to start verbalizing and teaching them that you're there too. And just go, hey, just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean you can't ask me a question. I know I probably look a bit scary down here, but you can still talk to me directly. And the reason I say that is I used to have this one friend of mine in a wheelchair, and I've told the story before, and she hated to be pushed. And I cannot tell you how many times I went out with her and we'd be in a social situation, at the airport, or we'd be, at the movie theater or something, and people would glare at me because she was working so hard to move herself and I wasn't helping. And I used to just have this little mantra that was going. I'd go, she hates to be helped. I know I look like I'm not a good friend, but she hates to be helped. I'm doing the best I can not to help her because that's what she wants. All right. So, it's just like the only way I could do it was with a sense of humor because, right. So Jody's saying she gets more frustrated than angry. You see, but the thing is, Jody, nobody's ever bothered to teach them differently. People get really, some people get really embarrassed about people that don't look like them or don't react like them or don't stand the way that they stand, right? It's different. They don't know how to cope with it. And so part of, I think, your journey is to teach people. And just go, hey, I'm not scary and I answer questions. Let me answer the one you just asked my husband. And teach Lionel that he needs to feed the question back. And just say, hey, Jody is more than capable of answering that one for you. Aren't you, Jody? And just feed it back. So I think you can do that, Jody. And can you see that the reason it triggers is people keep doing it? If you continue to teach people and you go, thank you so much for asking the question. Right? And I'd be happy. I want to tell you, the first person who was in a wheelchair that educated me, I was so grateful. I have to tell you, I was so grateful to them. Because now when I see somebody in a wheelchair, I just react totally differently. I will actually squash down onto my knees if necessary to talk to them. I will not, well, it's a bit more difficult now that I'm getting older. But, now these days I go, if I were not 72, I'd probably be down at your eye level talking to you. But right now I'm going to lean down because I'm not sure I'd ever get up again. I would be more vocal about my thinking. Even if I couldn't get down at their eye level, I would explain that it would be my wish, that I know better. Now, how about this one? I found an interesting quote that said, neurofeedback is gym equipment for your brain. If you do it, your brain gets fitter. It's just a natural reaction of your brain. No learning involved. You see, when you can see there's a reason why you react to that degree, when you can see that, you can start programming your brain not to go there. Right. And if you find difficulty correcting that behavior, then make sure you get to a professional who might be able to help you, or speak to your doctor about it and see if they can recommend a course that you could go on or something. I can remember one time having a major problem with something, and I went to my doctor and I said, hey, I'm overreacting to this, this, and this. Know of anybody that's doing any work on that I could join a group or something and do some work on it? And he did. And I went. And I felt a lot better for it. The other thing is, if you, what do you think the chances are when I'm under the stress that I'm under at the moment with the move? What do you think the chances are that I am going to overreact if I don't get enough food, if I don't eat well, if I don't get exercise, and if I don't keep vigilant, if I don't keep aware of what I am doing? I think it's highly likely, especially in the next couple of weeks. So Mark and Angel Chernoff said, the ultimate measure of your wisdom and strength is how calm you are when facing any given situation. Calmness is indeed a superpower. The ability to not overreact or to take things personally keeps your mind clear and your heart at peace. It instantly gives you the upper hand. To me, I like to think of it, I will have learned what I need to learn about being happy when I can control my overreactions and when I can give myself permission to react. Do any of you have a history of being taught not to react and stuffing it down and then ending up with depression? And that's another thing that I would like you to be aware of. Or, it's interesting, Yasha's saying that the people perceive her to be stupid because of the way she looks. And, obviously that angers her a great deal. But the thing is, you're not stupid and you know it. And if people treat you as if you're stupid, then, it's like their stuff. Your journey is to learn how to cope with that. And your journey is to be able to show them that you're not stupid. Not tell them, show them. Because I found that people will not believe it if you tell them, but if you show them, they believe it. And Ria said, stop reacting and start responding. It will make the difference. Jody when you got told what you were told and you were in shock and in disbelief, but then you cried, I am pretty certain that that lady understood your pain in that moment. The fact you didn't lash out at her, but the fact that you actually cried made her want to help you. Right? Because she could understand your terror and your pain. And I think that's a really good part for you to know. It is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to react honestly. And, I literally, things have happened to me where I have acted and I have responded and I go, I am really sorry that I sounded so angry there. But right in that moment, I was. Now, let me get a grip. And quite, and by the way, I wasn't angry at you. I was angry at the situation that I cannot change. And I know that. So let me just try and regroup here. And, I found when I can talk my way through it like that, people get it. They understand why I reacted. And they want to help me. Yeah, Jodi's saying that lady apologized several times and was trying to do anything within her power to create a different outcome. She was so very kind. Yeah, she didn't want to do it. I totally believe that she did not want to do it, and you weren't the only person that she had to tell that to. Can you imagine what her life must have been like that day, or this week, or this month? So here is another great quote, and it says, life is always full of drama and challenges, but you don't have to overreact to any of it if you choose not to. I want to tell you that I kept inside my head going, you are choosing to react to this. Just get over it and move on, get the appointment, go get the document signed, get on with your life. If you could have heard the spinning wheel inside my head trying to get me out of reacting and into, and as Jodi was saying, out of the reaction victim part and into the what do I need to do to get those documents signed part. It was really interesting. It was going boom, 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 boom inside my head. Sometimes when people say you're overreacting, how about this one? I like this one. It says, it really means I have no idea how important this is to you, and I'm not yet trying to see it from your point of view. Isn't that true? When people say you're overreacting, I've had it happen where people have said to me, oh, you're overly sensitive. And I say, no, I'm not. But I am very sensitive when people insult me the way you just did. Oh, have you noticed what people say after that? Oh, no, I was just joking. And I go, yep, that's what people say after they've been called on something like that. Because it's true. How many people have you called them on being rude to you or being, disrespectful or something? Oh, no, I was just joking. I go, yep, that's what people say after they've been caught out. And I found it makes me a happier person because I just set that boundary now. Listen to this one. Overthinking leads to overreaction. Overreaction leads to isolation. Isn't that true? You see, if I stayed on that, it's not fair, I want to see the other lady, blah, 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 I am entitled to it, da, 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 da. If I'd stayed in that place, or how about, well, they won't let me see the person I want to see, so I'm going to go somewhere else, it would have wasted more time. It would have wasted more energy. I had to get back to what do I need to do to get these documents signed? And it was see the other lady and get over it. Make a new friend. And, when when I had the telephone conversation, I was actually laughing about myself. I said, I didn't realize I liked you that much. When the lady that I wanted to see phoned me, I said, I had no idea how much I liked you until that happened to me. I was really upset that I couldn't see you. You see, I just decided telling the truth was going to set me free at that point. And how about this one? Sometimes she's overreacting because she's seen moments of inaction. She cares, that's why. She's unique, a unique soul who feels. And she feels everything a little bit deeper than everybody else. I am not overly sensitive, but boy, I am sensitive to certain things, right? Well, Jody is saying that's a perfect response. That's what people say after they've been called out. I want to tell you, I use that a lot on people because you can tell when they're embarrassed and their answer is this. Now, it's not necessarily very nice of me, but it is truthful. Nyasha, I'm not going to read what you've put, but I do think that's a great idea. Well done. Yeah, you definitely. Well done. Albert Ellis said that strong feelings are fine. It's the overreactions that mess us up. You see, I think it's okay to be scared. I think it's okay. How many of you know that I know I know that what's going to hit me this time next week, plus a day, or even this time next week, will be terrifying for me. Then, Saturday next week, when the actual furniture has to be moved and moved in and has to be unpacked enough, I know that's going to be such a stressful day. How many of you can imagine what that's going to be like for me? But I will have a bed at the end of it. And I will have a dining room table and a sofa. But, the futon has been my home for a month now, nearly. And so I'm very used to sleeping on that futon. But I also will have a house full of boxes. And I will have a shed full of boxes. And I will have a garden shed overflowing with tools and things. And even then I won't have enough room for it all. And I will probably end up with boxes on the covered deck. And I will probably end up with people raising their eyebrows at me because how could I try and put this much stuff into this place? And the answer is because I want to try. And I thought some of the best advice I got this week came from Yvonne. And she said, Sal, when they come to move you, could you do yourself a really big favor? I said, sure, what? She said, get out of their way and let them move you. And I thought about that because, I'm going to be apologizing that there's such a mess and I'm going to apologize for the fact that I haven't done. And they don't want that, right? They just want to get in, get it packed, get it moved, move on, get home. So it's going to be a great day for me to learn not to overreact. A great day for me to get my reactions under control and try and keep my sense of humor. Makes sense. Now, on Saturday, that's tomorrow, Dougie is coming with a friend to help me do some stuff in the garage before the movers come. I'm going to have the same problem where really, I found that with men, they don't have, they just tell me what the job is and let me do it. So, I need to be able to say, Doug, you see all that nyaga up on the wall there? I need it in a box and packed. You see that stuff up there? It's all going onto the junk pile, which is over there. And, I need to just be able to give them clear instruction. And they will do it. By the way, these 4 boxes here don't have lids. I need to find the lids. I'm going to do that while you guys do this bit. And do I think that I will be pretty tired come the end of tomorrow? Yep. I'm pretty sure I will. Nyasha, I think you're doing a great job of doing your own research and learning about these things. And, you know, what I've discovered is that I don't know if you've heard the expression, but, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Because really, what I found is if you want to find the solution to something, you know, you will start doing the research and you will learn. By the way, I need to warn you of something, though, sweetie, that if you don't get it, don't think it's because you're stupid. Some of the things I'm talking about, I've been working on all my life. Yeah, sure. Does that make sense? And I don't think I'm stupid. I think some things just take an awful lot of work. Jody will tell you that she had lived with being a pretzel for everybody until she met me. And I said, you know, what are you doing turning yourself into an emotional pretzel? And luckily, the fact that I worded it the way I did at this point of her life, it made sense to her and she changed, right? She could see it, visualize the emotional pretzel, and it changed for her. So, you know, try and just keep working on one thing at a time. Nyasha, that would be my recommendation to you. All right. And that's why last week I was saying, everybody concentrate on looking after yourself first. Before you do stuff for everybody else, make sure you do stuff, you know, if you've got to get up earlier to do it, then, but make sure that you look after yourself in some way. And if you can't do it first, make sure you fit that into your day, that you can say every day. And I was really proud of myself that every day this week, since we made that commitment, I did something for myself. And now I'm going to really concentrate. I'm really going to concentrate on not overreacting this week. I'm pretty scared that I will fail, but I'm going to work on it. And being who I am, you're going to hear the horror stories if I don't make it. All right, because I will be upset with myself and embarrassed. But, you know, I also know I will forgive myself because this will be a huge, huge change for me in terms of not only all my things moving, but also emotionally leaving Yvonne and the house. It's going to be a horrible 10 days in so many ways. So I think that we're just human beings. You see, that's my reality. And Jody, I don't think you would have heard me if you hadn't been ready to hear that particular bit of news about being a pretzel. Do you understand what I mean? Is that, you see, I think that anybody who wants to learn will hear and do more research and will go, wow, you know, that made sense to me, or I do that too, or whatever. You see, I don't think it all happens overnight. I think we all start working on it. I know that we did a year of emotional intelligence last year, and I'm pretty sure that we all came out of it a little bit more emotionally intelligent than we came into it. This year, I'm trying to do subjects that make us a better person. All right. And I think that not overreacting would make me an even better person. Do I think I'm going to be perfect at it? No. But can I work at it? Yes. There is the difference. And can I keep reminding myself it's okay to react? In other words, to have the emotion, but watch out for the overreaction. And then the question is, if I overreacted, do I apologize? Do I explain why I overreacted so people can understand? And I've done that quite often where I've got snippy with somebody and I'll go, I am so sorry. I just need to tell you that my mother used to punish me for doing that. And that's why I react to it. I don't mean it to you. It's just like it's a tape in my head that keeps playing. And I just want to apologize. Please let me give you a hug. Because then it sort of clears the air a bit. It wasn't my intent. It came out of some part of my brain that I don't understand. And I think it's important that we communicate better. When people understand things like that, where they understand why we react, then they also realize you weren't angry at them. And so as we all learn step by step, I think we all help one another step by step. And Jody, I can assure you that the idea of anybody being kind enough to help me do the research for the topics that I want to do never, ever struck me. So the fact that you and Lauren offered to help me during this critical time just blew me away. But what it also taught me is something I already knew, which is you are more than capable of doing it. And that I didn't give you really good instructions the first time about, one, if you possible, one quote per slide or whatever, so that I can read them easily. You see, that's a two-way trade. And I loved it that you said, we work so well together. And I'd like to say that the reason that we do is because we care, Jody. There's one thing I always have felt with you is that you genuinely care. This isn't just that you do it for the strokes or anything. I honestly know that you genuinely care. And you show me that all the time. And Lauren too, that Lauren does her part. And whoever thought that I'd be talking to Lauren at 3:00 in the morning, talking tennis? I didn't think so, but yep, apparently. And tonight will be even worse. I think it's the final tonight. So that's it. I'm gonna need your help, guys. I'm going to need all of you to keep me on the straight and narrow this week, if you possibly can. And it's interesting, isn't it, that as I got this busy, I started to do the vlogs again and edit them every night. And I can assure you, last night was a horror story. I got it all up and loaded, and then I realized there was a mistake and I had to take it down and unload it and then edit it and put it back up again. So isn't it funny, right, that as busy as I am, suddenly I want to make time to do it again. And it must be because it forces me just to sit and not think about all the to-do lists that I've got. I've got a feeling it's partly because of that. And hopefully that you're all learning something from what is happening. And if you are learning from the stuff that's happening to me with the move, keep feeding it back to me so I know it's worth doing. I really appreciate that. Which of the many things, Nyasha, would you like me to repeat? I am so sorry because I talk and yeah, Jody is saying that you can do the cell one step at a time, right? Like you've been doing. That's what Yvonne says as well. It's a major part coming up, and it's one big step closer to being settled. I do know that next Saturday night, when they leave here, I will just take a deep breath and remind myself I have the rest of my life to unpack if I need it. All right? And that's why I am thinking that I may put all the boxes and crud into that end of the house and keep this end clean. So if anybody comes in, I've got the clean section, and then, I've got the boxes at the other end of the house. Because if you think about it, what's going to be really difficult for me is I've lived a month in an empty house. That means that there's been so much room. It's going to suddenly feel a whole lot smaller when it's filled with stuff. And I have so much stuff. And so part of me goes, keep the stuff one end and keep, and then keep everything else as, this end as tidy as possible. It's like I'm going to have, my house and then the storage area. Nyasha, I gladly repeat if I know what it was, if you can give me a clue as to what it was that you heard. If you can give me a clue on that, I might be able to repeat it, but it's so far back now, I find it difficult. So the the other thing is that I'm going to do a trial run tomorrow with Dougie, because he's coming at 1 o'clock, and that'll give me 4 hours of his time to practice just telling him what I need and getting out of his way, right? And just literally leave them to do it. Just tell them what needs to be done and leave them to do it. And just say, and I need the boxes marked garage, so I know that's where it came from. And not try and tell them how to do it. Just, that's what I need, guys. Can you do it for me? And today it was interesting because Doug said, do we need to do any heavy lifting? And I'm going, no, I don't need any heavy lifting done. Yeah, Judith, it's so difficult. I think you guys know me pretty well. I am used to being able to do everything myself. And I've now reached a point in my life where I just can't do everything myself the way I thought I could. But I did fix the wallpaper yesterday. I was so proud of myself for that. But I've seen there's another bit that needs a bit of attention, but I can deal that tonight. I'll deal with that one. Isn't that sweet? Jodie's writing, Lionel has said about 20 times at least, oh, I wish we were there to help. Well, you make sure that Lionel know that you have been there to help. And that if he thinks that you guys have not been there to help, then he doesn't realize what we do every day. And, normally, Jodie, I take Saturdays off, right? So the idea of working Saturday tomorrow is not good for my body, but you know something? It's what needs to be done. And I know that the one area that still scares me is that garage. And so doing 4 hours in there with some overachievers will be really good, because we'll probably get it all ready to get moved. And the stuff that doesn't need to be moved will end up on the junk pile. So I think, overall, as long as I can keep control of myself, it'll be a good day. And I was totally right. Remember that I made the comment, which is, I don't need to phone Doug and tell him that I need his help. He already knows that. We've already discussed that. And, that's what I kept saying. Yvonne said, you need to phone him and remind him. And I said, no, I don't. Doug knows I need help. And therefore, you see, I trust Doug. I wonder if that makes sense. I trust Doug completely. So if Doug knows I need help, he won't forget that. It's not what he does, right? All the time he's going, I've got to phone Sal, she needs help, and he did. But the man thing is, thanks, Jody. The man thing is that he knows when I need help, right? Roundabout now is when, in his mind, I need the help. Jody's telling me the countdown. Jody, hang on a second, because I've got to get my tablet. Actually, I wanted to show you. Oh, you can't see that there. Hang on a second. Oh, pray I don't do a mischief here. I've actually started getting things up now. Can you see that? It's sort of, the good news is I have got most of the important stuff in the kitchen now. I've still got a long way to go. Scary. I've still got all the bottom cupboards, no, half the bottom cupboards and all those top cubies, and then I will be finished. But I've got a feeling the stuff in the top cubies really can't be important to me because I can't remember going up that high very often. Maybe once or twice, but not very often. All right, here we go. Let's find the countdown. That's pretty good, Jody. We normally forget it for the lunchtime broadcast, so I'm delighted that you reminded me. Hang on a second. Come on. Okay. We've got 10 months until American Thanksgiving. Nyasha, what have you not heard used anywhere else? We've got only 8 months and 2 weeks to Canadian Thanksgiving because the Canadians, of course, have their Thanksgiving earlier. Easter is just 2 months away. Isn't it amazing? Actually, 2 months, 11 days. Spring, just 48 hours away. And by the way, talking about that, I cannot tell you how great it was to go out into the garden and pick rosemary and cook with it last week. And, it's just such a small thing. I have never, ever, had that ability. And so I know I'm going to be doing more of that. So I'm looking forward to the spring. Daylight savings is just over a month away. It's 37 days away, isn't it? Yes. For those of you who celebrate Lent, you have 25 days to work out what you're going to give up. We have 17 days until Mercury goes into retrograde. For those who understand that, Valentine's Day is less than 2 weeks away. And in 11 days, wow, in 11 days, I will own this place outright and be out of debt. And I think that's correct. And have money in the bank. Think about that. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? So remember this week, you are allowed to react. That means to have an emotion. You are allowed to be angry. Try not to punish anybody with it. It's okay to say, gosh, that makes me feel angry, or I feel angry when I hear that. Own it. I feel angry, not you make me angry. Just I feel angry when I hear that. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be disappointed. It is okay to be frustrated. It is okay to be overwhelmed. But it's not okay to punish other people for it, or to blame other people for what we feel. You see, that is where we grow, when we realize this is our stuff, not somebody else's. And it is an incredible journey to happiness, in my view. When you can start seeing that you created your own hell, you also can see that you can create your own heaven. And it is totally different when you can be accountable for your own actions, when you can realize that other people don't do it to us. We do it to ourselves, either subconsciously or consciously. And if it's happening subconsciously, then you may want to get some help. But if you're doing it consciously, then, revenge things and stuff like that, then grow up. Let's not do that anymore. This is like everybody has the right to behave the way they want to behave, and they will pay the price for it. Our job is to look after our behavior. We are only responsible for our behavior, not somebody else's. Okay. So, may I ask you, what helped you today? Anything? Is there anything in today's broadcast where you went, wow, I really needed to hear that one? Because to me, I've always said that I just need to hear one thing. If I, when I used to go to seminars and things, I used to say, I don't need a whole book of wisdom. I just need to know one more thing that makes sense to me, and I will have paid the price of admission. I actually like this one for me, that I used to think I was overreacting. I now realize it was just a normal reaction to an abnormal amount of drama. I really could see this week that the reason I reacted the way that I did had a lot to do with the stress I was under, even though I'm handling it pretty well. But it's still there. Just because I'm handling it well does not mean that it isn't there. It is. And it's going to be there for some time. So be gentle with yourselves and be thankful for those people around you that are helping you stay on the path. And Jody, thank you for being our admin and looking after me the way that you do. And thank you so much for all the research that you've done and all the learning you have done in terms of, putting all that together. I know that's a big learning curve for you. Yeah, so Jody's saying, knowing it's okay to react when it's appropriate, but not punish, because that is the overreact. Yes. You see, and that's why I wanted to find a simple nugget that would make it easy. If I'm thinking revenge thoughts, if I'm thinking, I'll teach you to do that, I'll teach you not to do that to me. If I'm thinking, well, they did that to me, so it's okay for me to do that. No, that's all overreacting. But it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to have emotion. Just don't punish people with your stuff. Let them punish themselves with theirs. It's much easier. And thank you for saying that, Jody, and by the way, did you notice I've got a new addition to the kitchen? I've managed to find a Lazy Susan there to keep my stuff on, so I can sort of turn it. What else have I got? Anything else that you can see? No, I don't think so. I need to move stuff to show you. But I've done quite a bit of moving around stuff already. I found the last couple of days of stuff required some, I guess I'm going to have to move that lot. My pantry is now full, just so you know. Nearly. My fridge is better than full. Chock-a-block would be my fridge and freezer. Just don't breathe in there. And I'm wondering, I'm going to have to make a habit of pulling everything out of the fridge section and making sure I know what's in the fridge section, because it has got a lot of stuff in it. The freezer is absolutely to the limit. And here's my challenge. I know that I still, in my downstairs freezer, I don't have very much left in there now, but I still have a big bag of shredded cheese. And I do not want to waste that. So I'm thinking I may bring it home. Actually, I might go this afternoon and bring it home and then cook Yvonne macaroni cheese and then take it with me tomorrow. And maybe give some to Doug as well. In other words, use the cheese. What do you think? Good idea? I definitely don't want to waste it. And gee, would I like mac and cheese right now? Yep. Sounds good. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I would ask you all to be aware and to work really hard this week at understanding yourself better. Give yourself permission to have emotion and give yourself a real talking to if you are punishing people, even by thought. Do you understand what I mean? Even by thought. You know, even if you have what I call the punishing thought, then just go, why do I need to think like that? I really don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be happy. And to be happy, I need to let go of that need to punish people. So this is DearMamaSal saying thank you so much for being here. I hope you've learned a little bit about the difference between reaction and overreaction. Look after one another, but please, 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 let's remember to look after ourselves first. That includes me. Bye-bye for now.